Last year, I read Strange Houses by Uketsu, which was a book translated from Japanese, and this book, Strange Buildings, is the sequel to that one. Similarly to the previous book, this one is written as though the writer is providing a true account of his own experiences and investigations. Like, he references at the beginning of the story that Strange Houses was published, and that because of that publication, he's been getting a lot of information, like messages and stuff from various people telling him about the strange buildings that they themselves have encountered in their lives. So what do they mean by strange? Like, sometimes it's the architecture being a little odd. Like, for instance, there's one house that has a hallway that ends really abruptly, so it's a hallway that leads to nowhere, which is a really strange decision to make in a house as far as layout is concerned. But you also have houses where, for instance, terrible murder was committed, or where serious neglect led to the death of a child, or one house where the person living there was doing research and suddenly discovered that his house was marked on a map of places where bad things have happened. So one of those ghost website type things, or houses where bodies were discovered nearby, and other incidents like that, or where arson was committed, or where someone committed suicide. So a lot of these I guess more traumatic cases of violence, in people's lives. So this book, he puts together 11 of these stories, which are related to 11 different buildings whose stories are all actually interconnected to one another, if you start to examine the various details. And similarly to the previous book, this one is structured like a collection of accounts. So you have the author providing his introduction and his interviews with different people, and then you have the various short stories concerning each of the buildings involved, and then the author's speculations and his final conclusions from his discussions with his architect friend, who was also a major player in the previous book. So something that I liked. Similar to the previous story, I think this one did a good job on the mystery element. I especially enjoyed listening to the different weird short stories about the houses, before he starts to dig into the truths behind the stories that are told. And it was kind of interesting to see how the actions of various characters either affected or was influenced by the choices and actions of characters in other stories, as he starts to put those pieces together. I also appreciate how this one, I think, was a little bit more concrete in its ending than the previous one, whereas the first one, I think, was a bit more open-ended. I think this one leaves you with enough answers where it doesn't really feel like there are any unanswered questions. But on the whole, I didn't actually like this book very much. What I did not like, whereas the first book also had references to a number of pretty terrible things that people did. I think in this book, especially with 11 different houses and stories going on, there's an especially large number of really terrible crimes that people committed and bad things that happened. And because this wasn't a detective murder mystery story, it was more just a story where the author is digging into what happened and trying to explain old mysteries, catching the people who committed these severe cases of child abuse and abuse of women and so on, wasn't part of the equation. And I think that made it somewhat unsatisfying for me because of just how terrible a lot of the things that happened were.